Hey, I'm Crazy, and I'll be talking about my opinions on isekai and the problems I think are associated with it. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like, every single isekai feels basically the similar, if not just the same. Just like, let's just copy your homework and then change it in a little bit just to differentiate from one another. Because most of these tend to be, like, almost nothing to set it apart. Like, oh, a character either dies, gets transported to another world, gets a harem, becomes like a hero or something to save the world, destined to defeat the Kimi. Almost all of them tend to have like some greater evil or some, which makes sense. It's just good. It's this normal hero's journey, like towards the end, defeat the like greater evil or whoever is aligned to be the main antagonist of the hero's journey story. There are some decent ones, but to me, the only ones that kind of stand out would be just like I know Shield Hero gets hated on for some reason. I think it's fine, not the greatest. It's the first season's fine. Second season, I'm gonna care less about. But essentially, like Overlord was a nice-ish take at the time when it came out. Just the different, I guess, like perspective instead of oh, it's the hero. We're actually getting like almost like a villain side kind of thing, which was more entertaining, and which I guess leads me to one of my points where every isekai to me at least seems like just the same boring power fantasy generic harem slave combination of like just random ahaha XD humor kind of thing that these like youngins will just like I'm gonna just be horny on main 24/7 kind of junk. Some of the older ones that have been aired in the past and all that, or just the older isekais, like for example, Overlord, Tanya, the Saga of Tanya the Evil. Like to me, both Overlord and Tanya the Evil both follow a more. They actually give a little bit more story, and they're all a little bit more creative in that isekai genre compared to like the filth and just repetition of the same old, same old. I get the same thing sells, and you gotta follow the trend, chase the trend, but it just gets old, like, at least in my opinion, fairly quickly. Again, and they don't actually follow, like, the same, like, generic self-insert trope that I see so much nowadays. Like, for example, there is this new kind of anime or being adapted from a light novel called The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic, and essentially it's just a normal high schooler in every sense of the word, average everything, average grades, average dreams, and a tendency to dislike extraordinary people. However, when he encounters the president and vice president of the student council, both popular and extraordinary, he immediately befriends them. All of this is interrupted while Ken's new friends are summoned to another world. And he accidentally gets summoned as well. Dejected and with no way to return, he resigns himself to staying quietly in the new world until he finds out he has an affinity for healing magic, a very rare form of magic which gives him both self-confidence and the attention of all mages. However, not all attention is good, which is something Ken realizes when he is noticed by a crazy fellow healing magic user. And that is just so generic. Or at least to me, it's fairly boring, but it's interesting-ish. And I mean, like, interesting as in plot development, but when you actually read up to it, it's just basically, oh, haha, I have this special power that I use, or it's considered weak, or whatever, but actually it's, like, the strongest power that exists in the universe. It's like basically saying appraisal, like, which is common, and most, at least, like, isekais is like, oh, you can look at the stats and view it as, like, some kind of RPG thing. And that just seems so dumb. Like, I read a gag parody, like, for Twitter manga, one that basically was just saying, hey, instead, they have the appraisal thing, but instead, they just used it as, like, offensive, and they actually kind of twisted it in, like, an actual, like, funny and entertaining way, but it was just 4 pages. There is also one called Tales of Wedding Rings, which I thought was decent at first when I was a horny teenager. But essentially it was just basically this guy's been in love with his childhood friend and neighbor, which is named Hime, which a fitting name for a princess, mind you. Spoilers if you care about it. And then ever since that, like, basically the princess and grandfather appeared out of nowhere for 10 years ago, and now, yes, she is a dazzling, mysterious beauty, and it's more difficult to make him confess to his feelings. As the anniversary of their first meeting is nearing, Willie must have his courage to transform that friendship into something more. Well, an entirely different fate awaits this tightly bonded pair. Like, you get the basic characters in this. Is essentially you just get, like, you got a dark-skinned character, you got the childhood friend, you got the legal age lolly who actually is 300-year-old and is a dragon or whatever. And then you got, like, a random, like, almost robotic or no expression person that is actually quite cute and actually the most popular. And then you got a shy person and all that. And then you got, like, the tsundere, and it's just the normal, like, harem starter package kind of thing. Some of the, like, the more decent ones, I think, are, like, for example, Magical Revolution. That one, I think, is just decent. Like, it technically, yes, while it is an isekai, it barely dwells, like, oh, I didn't come from this world. And it just is basically just generic fantasy. If they remove the isekai, then whatever, it worked completely fine. It works probably better, but hey, it's barely dwelled on, and it works, and hey, it's a Yuri, so we love that stuff. What do I want to talk about with the new, or like the villainous isekais? I think they're more interesting, considering that those are, I guess, more geared towards shoujo, or I'm completely comfortable with. I actually would prefer a little bit more of that stuff. I only recently started watching some of them, and they're pretty good. Like Taming the Last Boss, I thought was pretty good. I'm sure it's generic or basically similar or not, but yeah, it's usually just the same. Like, hey, I'm reincarnated as a villainess, and now I'm getting like the bad ending, or every ending is the bad one. So I'm trying to avoid it and get the good ending or something, or I'm trying to like avoid all this. And there's like a whole parody, well, I guess parody, not quite parody manga, well, I guess it is, but essentially it's like, yeah, even the villainess can have like a good ending where basically it's just, I'll probably do like a screenshot of I'll probably just put the title on the screen, but it's really just, it's basically the villainess, but they all get happy endings. It's just kind of slightly parodying upon it. Oh, hey, thanks for the listening to the ramble. If you really cared about it, it's just more of a slow ramble, more so than anything. I don't know if anyone likes these or not. I'm gonna kick myself in the foot.